No.
Okay. All right. Hi guys, Laura here from Dogs by Design. We've got Chevy behind the camera again. Say hello.
Hi.
Great. We're here for episode number 3 of our practical live training demo. As you can see, we still do not have a name for it. I'll come up with something clever maybe eventually, but I'm not overly creative in that respect. So yeah, hope you guys are having a good day. Today we're going to be talking a little bit and demoing a bit of spatial pressure. So dogs communicate with body language, eye contact, and spatial pressure is kind of part of that body language. It kind of comes hand in hand. It also comes hand in hand with like energy as well. So we talk about, having like a negative energy or an excited energy or anxious, and like if you go into a room and there's like maybe a real negative energy, like you can go in there and while no one's actively like yelling or being negative, you kind of pick up on that vibe from everyone. That's what we're sort of talking about when we talk about energy, and it's really important for dogs because they pick up on that. Sometimes they're aware of our energy and how we're feeling even when we are not. So it's important to actually spend a bit of time learning about that and being aware. So what we first I just wanted to touch on quickly today is markers, because you'll watch some of our videos, you may hear us go or no, or sometimes if we're really communicating in dog language, we might be growling. You may even see me lifting my lips sometimes, which people laugh at me, but it works. And in most cases, it's what we would call a negative marker. And a negative marker can be anything. It could just a noise, word, something that makes you feel confident and a bit authoritative, makes you sound a bit more serious. We don't want you to make a noise that makes you sound silly and then you laugh at yourself. But what it means is that it's telling the dog the choice that you just made. So whether that's they chose to display a certain behavior, they chose to go against, chose not to listen to a command. As soon as you see them make that choice, you would give a negative marker, and that's to tell them that, hey, that was the wrong choice and that you need to alter your behavior or actually do what I asked you, or there will a consequence. There'll be a consequence for that. And it is important to remember that when dishing out consequences, that you have to make sure that your dog, you have really solidly taught, especially when you've solidly taught the command before you start telling them, giving them consequences for disobedience. If they don't know it, you have to make sure they know it. Sorry, Chevy, I've confused that a little bit, haven't I? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like for commands, yes, like they have to know what you're asking of them first.
Yes, before you can give them a consequence for like not listening to that command. You have to really be confident they know it first, and in various situations. But so when you're watching our videos, if you're hearing us go or shh sometimes, depending, or a growl, that's us giving a negative marker, telling the dogs you need to change your choice and we dislike the behavior or the choice that you have just made. If you ever hear us say no, we're generally giving the dog a consequence. Sometimes that's just, might just bang on the crate if they've been whinging in the crate, might be a little jab or a pop on the leash. But generally, we often give warnings. We give a lot of warnings first because that's how dogs would naturally communicate. And if you get your energy and your spatial pressure right, in most cases for a lot of dogs, consequence not required anyway, especially if you mean it and they're like, oh, okay, I actually better stop that because I don't think it'll go so well if I don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So to summarize, we're using spatial pressure and a negative marker such as or growl to warn them that what they've just done is undesirable.
Yeah.
But when we're using no, we're delivering a consequence.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Cool.
That was excellent. Well done. So yeah, we're going to demo that today. I've just got a couple of my dogs outside on our deck, and so we're going to head out there. It's not raining today, so hopefully it's easier to hear. And actually, really, what you're wanting you to observe is actually my body language, the dog's body language, because at the end of the day, you can have a full conversation with your dog without saying any words. And in many situations when we're dealing with more serious dogs or dogs that are overwhelmed or just losing the plot, we don't say anything anyway because that just feeds into it and the dogs get confused and it's just all a big explosion of energy that's just too much for everyone. So, all right, so we're going to see me use spatial pressure at the door. I was hoping Jasper would have turned up to do something wrong. But yeah, so you pretty much use spatial pressure whenever you... in most situations when you're dealing with your dog or trying to shape a behaviour or disagree with a behaviour that you dislike or whatnot. So yeah, let's just get going and we'll go from there. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. Just make sure today that the questions are specific to what we're going over and what you're seeing. We have our live Q&As where you can ask us anything on Thursdays at 4:30. So if you've got any other questions, you can tune in there. Alrighty. So today we've got outside, we have Gus and Zelda. So these are pretty much my two newest pack members. Both of them, Gus is still learning a few things, but he knows his basics. Zelda knows her basics, but she is a great example of having to use spatial pressure because she packs a sad and looks all pathetic when she actually knows what she's supposed to be doing. So she's a great example. So, all right, here we go. So again, this is re-implementing the rules and the thresholds exercise that was in our episode 1. Coming to the door, making sure your own body language, you calm and relax. We don't want everyone going, Dog's going to push when you do that because you look like you're not in control. You don't look self-confident, you look awkward, and so your dog's like, I'm going to push. Alright, so it's nice and relaxed, casual, but confident. We don't want you to be relaxed, but, like oblivious. I'm not even good at doing that type of relax. I can't even do it. I can't even give a demo of that.
You just look weird.
Yeah, exactly. So don't do that. But, yeah, you don't want to be so relaxed that you're oblivious. You want to be relaxed and confident and aware of what's going on, because then your dog's are going to look to you and go, oh, yeah, you're in control. Like, if something bad happens, yeah, you've got that. And which is what we're trying to portray to our dogs, to show them that we're not trying to be in control so we can boss them around. We're trying to come across like we're in control, we're self-confident, we know what we're doing, so that they trust us when something else comes along that makes them feel uncomfortable. It's more about them looking to us to be protectors or, guardians or whatever you call it. Alright, so again, I'm just gonna try and open the door. Cool. Alright, so you can see Gus here is quite excited. He's just been playing with Zelda and he's all amped up. So I'm just gonna so you can see Zelda backing off. Gus not. That was my fault, I said his name, which probably means he's allowed to come in. And that's what I was wanting from him. You saw he just stood and stared at me. Went, oh, so cute, let me in. Whereas I actually wanted him to back off out of my space. Being respectful of space is important. You guys saw the big black Great Dane. I'm going to try not to say her name so she doesn't think she can come in. She backed off, all right, which is what you're looking for. You're looking for a dog to back off out of your space when you're using spatial pressure for this particular situation. But actually, generally, in most situations, if you're using spatial pressure, it's because you want your dog to back off, give space and be a bit more respectful. So, all right, cool. So we're going to head out. All right, so you can see when I come out, I don't step around or step over. I don't tiptoe around the dogs. Like, I just walk out straight where I want to. And they are to move for me because, one, I've got leg pain issues, and so it's important to me, but also it's just being a bit respectful. Like, like I've got some pretty confident dogs, and if another dog's in their way, they literally just walk straight through them. And the other dogs like either move out the way or they get bumped and then they look all hurt, and the other dog's like, whatever, you shouldn't have been in my way. So you can see Gus here, he's trying to get some form of attention. Hold on a second, here we go. Alright, so this is my old Dane you're about to see. He is old, he does get a little bit get away with a few things. He's gone back to bed like he's supposed to. He keeps getting off his bed and getting in the way and trying to get involved when he's not supposed to. He knows he's supposed to stay on his bed, but he's a bit old and pushes the boundaries, probably because we spoil him a little bit. You know, you've got to be able to admit that. Cool. Alright, so before you can see them all, you know, Zelda's, they're all excited, they want us to do something, they think something's exciting has happened, so you can see that Chevy and I are ignoring them, and when they come into our space, we can even do a little bit of subtle spatial pressure, and that's just by, you know, Gus coming in, being excited, that I might just, you know, I'm nice and relaxed now, blah, 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 and then if he comes in, I'm going to tense and make a little eye contact until he backs off or stops that excitable energy. Alright, you know, I don't want him sniffing my foot. And I am being a bit picky here, like I'm not saying you can't let your dog sniff your foot, but I'm just using these as examples for you. I'm just putting a boundary. At the moment I don't want you to do that, Gus, just stop that. So you saw my body tense, I looked down, made eye contact. He didn't pick up on that vibe, so I gave him a negative marker, which I'm just using growling at the moment because it's kind of a clear communication that dogs understand. They've been around their mothers would have taught them that sort of, you know, discipline and those rules and boundaries. They know what a growl means. They know if they don't listen and back off to a growl, they might get a little bit of a nip. So the majority of dogs understand that. That's why sometimes rescues are a bit harder, because maybe they haven't been around their mums and haven't learned that foundation, so they might struggle a bit. But in most cases, you know, dogs have that skill. So what we're also going to do, I'm going to just see Zelda. I'm going to ask it to sit. Alright, so for me, when I say sit, there you go. So an example of spatial pressure, okay? So when I say sit to my dogs, it means alright, when I say sit to my dogs, it means keep your bum on the ground until I give you another command, or I give you your command that means you can go free. Release. Alright? So in this situation, many of you might be looking at that going, oh, she just doesn't know it. So if she really didn't know it, she wouldn't keep putting herself butt back down when I applied the spatial pressure, and you'd be seeing a few other behaviours as well. Like, I can pretty much take this dog anywhere and hold a treat and say sit, and she'll sit. Like, she knows it. If she knows that I've got food, she'll do it. So she at the moment is testing. She's like, how much do you actually want me to do it, and are you going to follow through? So, and I'm presuming most of you just saw that spatial pressure. You saw how subtle it was. Like, for me, it was just me standing there making that eye contact, standing there going, I'm not going to back away. I'm going to hold this pressure here until you go back to doing what I know you're asked to do. And you can see the look on her face. She's like, oh. And then when she kind of starts to realise that I mean it and I put a little bit more pressure on, she's kind of, oh, fine, I'll put my bum back down. So, you know, that's subtle. You can have that communication with anything. Sometimes even a bit of spatial pressure is just a bit of eye contact. You know, like, you know, your dog might be sniffing over there at your plants you don't want them to chew. Alright, and you could kind of glance towards them, hold that, just that alone is a bit of subtle spatial pressure. Give it your negative marker, which means, I don't like that. And then hold that pressure, wait to see what decision they make. If they look at you and go, okay, I'll walk away, I'm not supposed to do that. But if they look at you and then go back to, about to chew the plant, you're going to give your negative marker again because they made a wrong choice. And you're going to start to put a bit more pressure on. And you're going to keep that communication up until they make the correct choice, which is to walk away. Alright? Is that making sense so far?
Yeah. Yep.
Alright, so we'll just see if we can give another demo again. Gus, sit. Alright, so even with giving the command, I hold the spatial pressure. So I asked him to sit, and I held my eye contact, I held my kind of squared body language. Release. Good boy. I'm not going to make him hold as long because he is still learning a little bit. But even when asking to sit, so many people go, sit, and then go relax, and the dog's like, oh, you're not even paying attention to me, I'm not going to sit. So it's important if you ask your dog to do something, you can hold spatial pressure until they do it. And again, spatial pressure is not something negative, it's just a communication. It's saying, sit, and I'm going to wait here until you do that. Alright, and if you don't do that, well, we're going to address that. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then he did it, and then he broke it, and you saw him go to the side and go to the other side, and I just gently put that little bit of spatial pressure on. If you missed any of it, re-watch this video, and then you can have a look at what I'm talking about, which I think is very, very important. So we're going to go Zelda sit. Good. So you see I held my eye contact by kind of spatial pressure until the bottom. Release. Good. Yeah. Just sit. Good. Release. So even there, we're getting Gus to sit. He was taking a little bit longer. He's just a bit excited because he thinks he has food, so he's not using his brain properly. So even I was like that, but then I actually subtly turned to square him off. Is that the right wording? Square?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And put a little bit more pressure on. Hey, don't do that. Put a little bit more pressure on, and then he did it. Right? So you're seeing what I mean? It's very subtle, and that's why sometimes a trainer or someone will come in and handle your dog. They'll get the dog will respond. It's because the trainer's experience with the spatial pressure, even if they're maybe not even aware they're using the spatial pressure, they might still be, this dog's still going to be responding to it. But us as owners, we always do everything a little bit quickly as well. It's like, just sit, and we're doing hand movements, and we're moving, and we're all and you sit. And it's all over the place, and we're trying to give the treat and then hold the lead, as opposed to just slowing down. The more you slow down, the more you'll probably naturally display that spatial pressure to communicate with them. And there's also another way you can use spatial pressure to get your dogs away as well. So, because again, I'm using it to follow through with a command. I'm using it to create space around me. So let's see, I'm going to kneel down and just see if they're going to come into my face. I know Zelda's quite good at that. You can always come a bit closer if you don't get a good view. She may even do it to you, Judy. So you see, she's going to come right into my face. She's very demanding, so I don't want her in my face. Alright, so that's a little bit of spatial pressure and natural canine communication. I don't want them playing in my space either. Some people might not mind that, but I personally don't like that because they could hurt me. She's a big girl, he's a very solid boy, and I want them to just be aware. So you see, even just a bit of canine body language, that leaning on me, just kind of put herself in a little bit, that's just maybe not disrespectful, but just a bit pushy.
Mm.
And the important thing there is that I held the spatial pressure until she'd actually made a different choice. If I'd relaxed too soon there, she would have gone back to leaning on me. Okay, so I held my spatial pressure until she lay down. I would have also accepted spatial pressure. I held spatial pressure until she chose to walk away. So the more you kind of watch dogs communicate with each other, and watch how they communicate with you, and looking for the subtle things, the better you will get at noticing these little things and when to put the bit more pressure on, when to take away the pressure. So the reason Zelda's like this is because she's learnt this behaviour works. She's a rehome from a very loving family, but she's learnt all this cutesy behaviour, this leaning behaviour, this in your face kind of behaviour gets her what she wants. So again, you may not have even noticed that very subtle freeze that I did. The subtle spatial pressure to say you're two in my space, and you saw her walk away. That's what we mean when we talk about spatial pressure, really, isn't it? So we can use it here because I really do not want him eating dirt. All right. So I don't really want him eating that dirt. So bull terrier, stubborn, going to come straight back probably. And you saw how he tried to. Out. No. So I'm wanting him to turn around and walk away there. He might have heard me say no there. I shouldn't have said that because I didn't do it with a correction. But we're all not perfect sometimes. It's a long day. We've just brought in four board and trains today. So that's always a very long day. So yeah. Is that how do you...
Yeah.
Good explanation?
Yeah. Was there a little bit of a freeze for Gus just then,
yes,
where he was deciding whether or not to...
No. Yeah, there was a little bit of freeze. Not when he was doing the waggly, but in the first
No, but in the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so, yeah.
It's very subtle, and within different breeds you can see different things as well. Like you see, he's very persistent. He really wants that. He's going to keep going back to it. And I'm taking a very like not gentle, but very kind of relaxed approach to it. I'm not like super I'm not super upset that he's touching that. I'm just like, can you please stop it? If I really wanted to stop him, then I'm gonna. Actually, I'm taking a patient approach. That's not a relaxed approach. I'm taking a patient approach. So at the end of the day, the behaviour's not that bad. It's not, it's normal dogs eat dirt. It's not the end of the world. But I'm kind of using this for the point of the exercise and the training that we're doing. But so I'm not, I'm not gonna correct him as such because I'm taking a more patient approach. I'm just going to be like, no, I'm just going to keep doing this sort of communication. Maybe if it was something more serious like a poisonous plant, then ideally I'm going to remove that from my garden. But say something that we really, really didn't want him to touch. Then I'd give him one warning, and then if he came back to it again, I would give a warning and come down pretty quickly with a correction. And in most cases, that would just give him a bit of a jab in the side, kind of like just give him a fright to snap his brain out of it, and make him realise that is what that warning means. If you do not listen to the warning, a consequence is going to come. And that's life. Life's full of consequences like that. It's Mother Nature for you, you know. A little lion cub's going to learn not to hunt a porcupine by hunting a porcupine and getting spiked in the nose. Don't hunt those, they hurt. That sort of learning process. Obviously, we're not trying to hurt them, we're just kind of snapping the brain out of it, but it's that same principle. Cool. Alrighty.
Cool.
Any questions?
Not yet. Everything seems quiet.
Oh, good.
But yeah.
Cool.
All looks good.
Alrighty. Well, if anyone has any questions later on, just drop them below or send them to a message to me, and we'll be good to go. Cool. Alright. See you Thursday, 4:30 p.m.
Bye.